Imagine living in a fortress built to repel armies, yet discovering the deadliest threats were not outside but inside your own walls. At first glance, medieval castles seem invincible. Towering stone walls, arrow slits, moats that could drown intruders. You might assume the enemy beyond the gate was the true danger. But history whispers a darker secret. Disease, fire and starvation lurked quietly in kitchens, dungeons and crowded chambers. While soldiers trained to storm battlements, the castle dwellers often faced silent killers daily. It is a paradox that invites disbelief. People could withstand battering rams, catapults and siege engines, yet succumb to the air they breathed or the food they relied on. Imagine the tension, walking through corridors knowing that the next moment could bring not a sword, but sickness, or a collapse from exhaustion, or flames from a neglected hearth. The mystery of survival in a castle is not measured in battles won or lost, but in the fragile balance between human ingenuity and the relentless dangers of confined life. And as we peer back, we must ask ourselves, in a world built to defend, who were the true enemies? Castles were more than military structures. They were small vertical towns crammed with dozens, sometimes hundreds, of people living, eating and working within stone walls. Lords and knights wielded swords and banners outside, but inside the threats were subtle and insidious. Water contamination was common. Wells could be shallow or poisoned by nearby latrines. Kitchens churned with smoke and open flames, a single mistake turning a home into an inferno. Overcrowding spread fevers like wildfire, and inadequate nutrition weakened bodies, making even minor injuries deadly. Every room was a potential trap. Dungeons suffocated with stagnant air, storage rooms spoiled with mould and vermin. The very design meant that while battlements repelled enemies, interior spaces concentrated risk. And yet life went on. Children played near the hearth, cooks prepared meals over blazing fires, and guards patrolled endless stone corridors. Medieval dwellers developed instincts and routines to cope. Layered clothing against winter drafts, careful rationing of food, and vigilance over hygiene, crude as it may seem to modern eyes. It is this remarkable interplay of risk and routine that kept castles alive, revealing that the daily grind of survival was as strategic as any siege. Here's the clever part. Castles were engineering marvels, but their defensive genius often magnified interior danger. Thick walls trapped smoke from kitchens and fires, and chimneys were small, forcing people to breathe soot-laden air. Latrines, placed over moats or pits, could contaminate drinking water, creating invisible enemies of bacteria and parasites. Food storage was another battlefield. Grains and salted meats lasted months, but mould and infestation were constant threats. Peasants and servants learned to mitigate risks with surprisingly sophisticated methods. They boiled water, smoked meat, and rotated stock to prevent spoilage. Fireplaces were strategically placed to heat multiple rooms without suffocating occupants, and ventilation shafts carried smoke upward while preserving warmth. Even sleeping arrangements were tactical. People huddled together in cold winters for shared body heat, while layering hay and straw to insulate from stone floors. The logic was simple yet ingenious. Survival demanded that every action, cooking, sleeping, cleaning, be adapted to a hostile microenvironment, turning daily life into a subtle, unending contest between human skill and natural hazard. In many ways, these interior strategies were as critical as defending the outer walls from siege engines or marauding armies. What medieval castles teach us resonates today. Modern urban living often hides risks we ignore. Indoor air quality, sanitation, fire hazards, and overcrowding still threaten lives. The lessons of castles remind us that human survival depends on understanding our environment, not just external dangers. Techniques for food preservation, careful ventilation, and communal warmth can inform sustainable living practices, energy efficiency, and disaster preparedness. We see the same principles in survival training, assessing unseen threats, prioritizing hygiene, and mastering resource management. Medieval dwellers lived with constant uncertainty, yet they thrived because they respected both the visible and invisible hazards around them. Applying these insights today, whether in remote living, emergency planning, or eco-conscious housing, demonstrates the enduring value of skills that are centuries old, yet astonishingly relevant. By studying how people navigated the hazards of castle life, we recognize the timeless truth that survival is rarely just about fending off what's outside. It's about mastering the conditions within our own walls. Ultimately, the story of medieval castles challenges our assumptions about danger. We imagine threats as obvious: an invading army, a pitched battle, a violent storm. Yet history shows the true peril often came from familiar everyday realities: smoke-filled kitchens, contaminated wells, spoiled food, and the slow grind of exhaustion or disease. Castle dwellers lived in a constant negotiation with their environment, adapting techniques, routines, and clever improvisations to endure. Their ingenuity transformed stone, fire, and scarcity into a livable, if perilous, world. Reflecting on their experience, we gain perspective on modern comfort and complacency, understanding that survival depends not only on shielding against the outside, but mastering the interior. In a world still filled with hidden hazards, this knowledge matters. And perhaps the most profound takeaway is this: resilience is as much about awareness, preparation, and adaptability as it is about walls or weapons. To honor that legacy, we can learn to see the dangers around and within us with a sharper, more thoughtful eye, applying old wisdom to modern life and ensuring we thrive not by chance, but by choice.